Well, boys and girls, whether you're 2 or 92, it's finally here, isn't it? What you've been waiting for, the sermon. The only thing standing between you and your favorite thing of the whole worship service, right? Nah, I know what you've been waiting for. It's what I'm waiting for too. You are all looking forward to the lighting of the candles and the singing of Silent Night when we turn out all the lights. And I'm right there with you. It's really maybe my favorite part of the whole season, maybe my favorite part of any worship service. It's beautiful. Christmas by candlelight. But I have a favorite moment that I don't know that the rest of you see. And that's when Pastor Drew and I will come down and we'll light some of the starting candles, and the ushers will come from the back and someone will start the light up in the balcony. And then we dim the lights, and there's this wonderful moment where the light starts to pass and you see these little flickers and flames catching a light, and it spreads and spreads and spreads until the whole sanctuary is aglow with candlelight. It's wonderful. I'm so glad the fire marshal is not a member of our church. Because I'm pretty sure if we had those little LEDs, it would not be the same thing. There is something important and wonderful and marvelous about candlelight. And I think that the ministers have the best vantage point of all because we can see you. We can see all the light and your beautiful faces glowing by that warm, gorgeous candlelight. It's very flattering, mind you. I could tell you why. You know, there comes a time in a minister's career when you find out about the physics of candlelight. You learn that there are the 4 levels of combustion in a single flame. You learn about all the various colors that are contained in candlelight. You also learn that candlelight makes us look good because candlelight diminishes the appearance of the colors blue and purple for those of us who have a lot of blue and purple. And it emphasizes and intensifies the color red, and so we look rosy and healthy and fabulous by candlelight, which is why you should light your parties with candlelight. But if we studied the physics, if we talked about the science of candles, that would take all the fun out of it, wouldn't it? And really, Christmas is just beautiful with candles alone. Christmas by candlelight. At this time of year, I like to drive around and I like to see the decorations that people have in their homes. Sometimes you will see houses with a couple of candles in the window, or maybe just one. Sometimes you see that here. I used to see that more where I grew up, out in South Dakota. I grew up out on the plains, the prairies of South Dakota, where, boy, when it is dark, it is dark. And there's not a lot of population and housing out there. You can go miles between houses. And when you're driving out in the country at night, sometimes you can see just a pinprick of light off in the distance. Now, these days, that's usually a farmyard light. But there was a time when people would leave single candles in their windows so that if there was someone who was lost out on the vast prairie, they could at least find their way to shelter. That was what it was for, so that it could lead you to safety. But the practice that we know of setting candles in the windows actually came with Irish immigrants. It's an Irish custom originally. It started back in the 16th century, the practice of lighting candles in the windows. This was because of tensions between Roman Catholics and Protestants, but if you ask the Irish why they set candles in the windows at Christmas, they will tell you that it is to welcome and to guide Mary and Joseph if they are on the road that night. It's a light in the window that is meant to guide those who wander and are lost, in case Mary and Joseph these days are looking for a room. It has also become a sign of hospitality. If there was a candle in the window on a Christmas Eve in Ireland, you could knock on that door. and be guaranteed not just of a welcome, but of a place to stay. If you were a stranger or a sojourner in need of rest, a candle in the window was a sign that you could come in. Any weary traveler would be welcome to share whatever the family had to offer. As meager as that was, that candlelight was a sign of generosity. Well, it started as a symbolic welcome, and it became a welcome for all people. The idea of come in, come and join us. You see, that's what pulls on my heartstrings, right, in this passage from Luke. I love the bit about the shepherds. I love those motley shepherds out in the fields. I love the splash and the wonder and light of the angels singing. But the line that gets me comes at the end of that first part of the passage. Let's listen again. In those days, a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration and was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. All went to their towns to be registered. Joseph also went from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, of the city of David called Bethlehem, because he was descended from the house and the family of David. He went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was engaged and who was expecting a child. And while they were there, the time came for her to be delivered. And she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in bands of cloth and laid him in a manger because there was no place for them in the inn. No room in the inn. I think about Mary and Joseph wandering around in the cold and the dark. I think about Mary heavily pregnant. I think about the need of this couple, and I think about what kind of person would turn them away, right? If people knocked on your door and the woman was pregnant and they said, "Help us, we have no place to stay." If you could see the signs that she was having contractions, would you open the door? I like to think we would, wouldn't we? Because it's appalling to imagine a young couple weary from traveling, wife heavily pregnant, being turned away. We wouldn't do that, would we? We would make room for Mary and Joseph, come what may. We'd make sure that they had what they needed. We would give what we had and share it with them, because that's the kind of people we are. We always want to welcome and make room for the Christ child. Or at least that's what we tell ourselves. I actually had a chance to do this in 1995. I had the chance, and I'm going to tell you this story as I was writing it. I cried in my office. I'm going to try real hard not to cry tonight. It was 1995, Christmas Eve day, and I was a new pastor. It was my first call, a temporary call, serving a tiny church in the foothills of the Berkshires. It was Colebrook Congregational Church, and you cannot imagine a more picturesque and remote place. And in between getting ready for Christmas Eve services, my first Christmas Eve ever, and wrapping presents and making sure that my one child, Walter, had a lovely Christmas, I made a mad dash down the hills. There were no stores really in Colebrook. It's a town of about 1,200 souls. And so I drove down to the nearest town of any size, Winstead, Connecticut, to the nearest real store. If you can believe it, it was a Pamida. That's how long ago it was. A Pamida. Children, ask your grandparents. I was on the hunt for those last-minute stocking stuffers, the things you tell yourself that yes, you'll buy when you have the chance, and you don't, and you leave it till the last minute. So there I was, in a crowded general store, in essence, with a basket full of just a few stocking stuffers to make Christmas perfect. And I did what I always do. I picked the wrong line. If you see me in a store, do not stand behind me, because I have surely gotten in line behind the person who's paying with pennies and coupons. I picked the wrong line. The store was crowded, and there I stood, and I got in line behind a young couple. And they had their cart, and it was loaded with toys, and there were pajamas, and I could see even some Christmas decorations, and I was thinking, holy smokes, it's Christmas Eve. You all are cutting it a little close, aren't you? And they got through. The cashier was ringing them up and ringing them up and ringing them up, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh, please, let this be over soon. And the total rang up, and as I recall, it was about $78. And the husband wrote a check. You could do that back then. And he produced his ID, and the cashier ran the check through the machine, and it stopped. It stopped, and she turned to him and she said, I'm sorry, sir, I can't accept this check. Do you have something else? And he said, no, there's money. There's money in that account. Run that check again. She took the check, she ran it through, it stopped again. Again, I'm sorry, sir, do you have another form of payment? The wife looked panicked. She turned to her husband and she started to say, didn't you put the paycheck in? And there was this conversation going on in front of me, and in my head, I can hear a voice saying, you should pay for this. You should pay for this. You should buy what they need for Christmas. And I looked at the toys, and I saw that there were toys for at least 2 children, clearly toys for a girl and toys for a boy. And I thought, I should pay for this. Here was the Christmas these parents were hoping to provide, and they were standing in a crowded store with people lined up behind them, getting cranky, and they were being turned away by a young cashier who had no choice. She was running the check, and it wasn't clearing, and she kept saying to him, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, sir. And I kept thinking, I should pay for this. And then the fear crept in, the darkness. I was a young pastor. This was my first church, and it was part-time. I might as well have been paid in sweet corn. I was making so little money. And my husband was a graduate student, and he was driving to Boston 3 times a week. And we had bills, and we had student loans, for heaven's sakes, and daycare, and our own Christmas to fund. And it was $78, which seemed like a lot to me. And what if these were con artists? What if they were thieves? What if they were... And it came, and it came, and it came, and there were waves. And still a voice said, you should pay for this. I would like to offer you a Hallmark story. I would like to tell you all that I listened to that angelic voice, that better angel of my nature. And that I leaned forward and I said, I will cover this. But I did not. I stood there paralyzed by my own concerns and fear, and I let that Mary and Joseph walk away empty-handed. There was no room for them in the inn. There was no Christmas at their home. There was nothing because of whatever was going on with the bank. I'm sorry, sir. Is that what the clerk at the inn said to Mary and Joseph? I'm sorry, sir. I had a chance. I had a chance to bless someone, to light one small light on a Christmas Eve, and I did not because I was afraid. That's why we celebrate Christmas. That story I've just told you, if it turned out that I had paid for their Christmas, you would know I was lying. Like it or not, the world is not a Hallmark story, and Christmas rarely turns out so neatly. The truth is, many of us have those moments where we could help, where we could do more, where we could light one light, but we're afraid. We're afraid that we're being lied to, or that we're being cheated, or that someone hasn't planned right, or that someone else has made mistakes, or that someone else is responsible, or that something has gone wrong and that we are not the ones who should fix it. We have a chance to light that light, and we don't. I didn't. My friends, in the last 25 years, I cannot tell you how many times I have bought things, or given money, or arranged transportation, or found a room in a hotel. How many times I have done things to help people in need. Some I knew, many I did not. And I don't remember any of them. But I will never all my life forget the couple that I did not help, because someone asked me to light one candle, and I was afraid. See, that's the magic of candlelight. It comes to you, and if someone lights their candle off yours, your light does not go away. It is not diminished. In fact, the light is doubled. And the more it spreads, the brighter it gets, and it starts with one light. And what we celebrate tonight is not that we bring the light and yay, Jesus is born. We celebrate tonight that Christ brought the light. Christ brought the light that we could not produce for ourselves. Listen to the words of Isaiah. The people who have walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who lived in a land of darkness, on them a light has shined. We do not bring the light. Time after time, day after day, Jesus brings the light, and he lights it in our hearts and asks us to share it with the world. But so often we're too clenched, we're too afraid, we're too concerned with our own lives. Tonight, I want you to light one candle and let someone light their candle off yours. I want you to see that light in your hands, and I want you to remember the grand and marvelous gift that has been given to each and every one of us, not because we deserved it, not because we earned it, but because we needed it. Your candle is going to be lit tonight so you can share that light with the world. That is the meaning of Christmas. And that's why we look so beautiful by candlelight. May the light of tonight shine in you and through you every day of the year. And I'll see most of you next year.